Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a sneak peek at Maggie Greene, who is going to be the progression mission character reward in the new update from 35.1. I'm going to be doing a proper actual preview of this character once the character comes into the game fully. This is just a sneak peek at what she has to offer initially, and obviously we're going to get a bit more of a better view in that future video. As you can see on the screen, this is what she looks like visually. We did see her art on the left hand side already, but what she looks like in game is on the right hand side. She is holding that very large bow, but if you notice on the left hand side, she is an alert character, which is very interesting indeed. Holding a bow of quite significant size indeed. If you look at the stats, you can see she has 12,500 attack, 20,000 defense and 17,500 HP. Now this is without lieutenant system. Now the only character that I can really compare this to that's in the game currently is St. Paddy Prayer. Has fairly similar stat balance, and if you check out St. Paddy Prayer's stat balance when she is fully maxed out with lieutenants, she goes up to over 31,000 defense and 27,500 HP. So that's pretty much what Maggie Greene's defensive stats will probably look like when fully maxed out. Again, we'll have the full info on that one when I do the full-on preview. So we'll take a sneak peek at the Adrenaline Rush next, and it is called Digging In. It's a 66 AP cost rush. This character gets 100% defense and heals by 100% of their max HP for 2 turns. This is very similar to a previous character that's been in the game, and that is going to be Gold Mythic Cliff. And they have got other similarities between Cliff and this character as well. But this is very problematic if it actually goes off, because this basically makes her indestructible for a little bit of time, as you know, with the 100% defense buff that comes in with Angel. Now, there are ways to deal with that in terms of like ransack and cleansing these buffs, but the 100% heal as well can be ransacked. But it is very nice indeed in terms of how much this is going to improve Maggie Greene's survivability. And if you've come up against Cliff, you kind of know if he actually rushes, it just makes things a lot slower and a lot harder to deal with for sure. So a pretty decent rush here, and I have got some footage of this, but it's going to be pretty basic. So here we have just a small clip of Maggie on a defense team, and she has got her Adrenaline Rush available. If we just roll the clip, you can see she's going to give herself a defense buff and a 2-turn 100% heal buff. Now, the way that will work is she'll get healed by 100% instantly, and then she'll get healed by 100% on her next turn as well. So she's going to instantly heal herself for 100%, and that's quite nice, as much as she's never going to receive 100% because she's never going to be at 0%. But if she has got heal reduction on her, this is obviously going to be nice. So like if it's got like 20% heal reduction, 80% heal reduction, the fact that she's healing for 100% will just effectively heal over the heal reduction. Now I will say, because she's a medic, she will have the spirit passive, and she should receive some bonus HP based on how much she gets healed. So if she gets healed for 10,000 of her HP, she'll receive 2,000 bonus HP. If she heals for 0 because she's already full HP, she will receive 0 bonus HP. The bonus HP will be based on how much she actually gets healed by. So very nice rush indeed, just to basically keep her tanked up. If we look at the upgrades on this, you can see at grade 3, this gets an upgrade where she gets plus 1 turn of 100% defense. So initially it is just a heal, but at grade 3 it's not going to be too hard to come by. At grade 5, the AP cost gets reduced to 66 from 75. And then at Limit Break 2, the heal and the defense up get boosted to last 2 turns instead of 1 turn. So the basic progression on the rush, not too crazy. I'd say obviously getting the LB2 is going to be important, just because you're going to have that 2-turn heal. Primarily the heal is going to be the big one there. The defense buff is nice, but I don't see people focusing this character as much potentially. I do see people trying to control her based on other parts of her kit, rather than trying to actually just take her out. But otherwise, just a pretty basic rush. It's going to make her very tanky. And like I said, when it came to, dealing with Cliff, if it does go off, it is just kind of frustrating that it can slow it down by a couple of turns. Now, the next thing we're going to look at on Maggie is her signature move, and it is called Flip It Around. It has got an initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. Up to 2 damage roll enemies get stunned for 1 turn. Deal damage to 1 enemy equal to 15% of this character's defense. So this is quite nice. It's going to be off of turn 1 as well, so you're going to be able to do some damage off of turn 1 and also get some control in. That's quite important with the control. A lot of teams can do quite heavy nukes on turn 2, and because it's targeting damage roll characters, that's much less likely to actually happen. Now, there are a couple of heavy damage dealers out there, that actually not damage roll. For instance, Easter Eva can bypass this effectively, so there are kind of ways to get around this and still do significant damage. But I like this signature move. It is going to come around pretty quick as well. The cooldown's pretty decent. The damage is going to be interesting though. It isn't flat damage. I think there's potential that this is going to have reductions come in as well, because it just says deal damage, just kind of like how you deal damage on a rush. So let's say 15% of this character's defense is 15,000 because you've got her up to 100,000. You then deal 15,000 damage, and then defense reductions will come in on the defense character. So this could potentially just do very little damage indeed. We'll have to see. Okay, so here's a little clip of her signature move, and we'll just roll it through, and you can see that she is going to target Negan, and she is going to do damage against Negan. Now, she has got a big defense buff, so that is using that defense buff as part of the signature move boost. You can see the damage is not too amazing. It is going to use Negan's defense to reduce the incoming damage, but obviously you can amplify this. The higher defense that Maggie has, the higher her base is, and then when she's got this 200% buff, which she will have on that first signature move a lot of the time because of her passives, which we'll look at in a second, and she'll be able to get a little bit of a boost on that first signature move. After that, it's going to be not that big a deal on the damage, if I'm honest. It probably would have been better if it was doing an effect like maim, bleed, or burn, just because as actual damage, just because the defense reduction can come in, it's not that fantastic, honestly. Now, we do see that Negan is controlled for one turn because he is a damage roll character. Now, Kenny would have been controlled as well, but he has already been stunned from other sources, so there is other parts of the kit on Maggie where there is the potential stun coming in. Now, if we look at the upgrades on the signature move, you can see at grade 2, it gets -1 to cooldown, so it goes from a 3-turn cooldown down to a 2-turn cooldown. At grade 4, it gets 10% of defense as damage, so that's going to change from a 5% defense as damage up to a 15% defense as damage. At limit break 1, she'll get +1 turn of stun to 2 damage roll characters. This is going to be an upgrade to the adrenaline rush. And at limit break 3, she will get -1 to starting cooldown. And I will say this is probably quite important to get this character to LB3 to get the best out of that signature move. It does seem like the signature is a bit more powerful than rush in terms of actually being effective against the enemy. Earlier control is always nice. And yeah, -1 to starting cooldown turn 1 is very important. LB3 required. You're going to have to get through those progression missions as quickly as possible. Now, next up, we'll move across to her mythic abilities. These are her passive skills, and we're just going to read through it. I'm not going to be showing you any clips on these ones. And you can see that 20% of all healing performed by this character also granted as bonus HP. That is because she's a medic. She has got spirit. It is going to be effective on the actual healing done, not the percentage shown. So like I said, as much as she does heal for 100% on her adrenaline rush, is based on how much she actually heals. Now, if we look at the next one, it's 100% dage resistance. That does mean she's got a very good chance of getting that signature move off turn 1. Any control characters that come in that can potentially daze her will reduce that 100% down to 60%, but that's still pretty decent without having to use a mod. That means you can mod her for other resists. You can actually go down and double down on stats if you actually want to keep her alive a bit better. It's actually a pretty good resist there for her on a defense team. The next one is Fortified. At the start of each wave, get 200% defense for 2 turns. This is the buff you saw. It can be stolen away because it is a buff. It works the same way as Imani, the same way as Lao Po, Sebastian Milton. But it will boost that signature move the first time she does it. Past that, she will be obviously based on any other defense buff that she can get. And there are characters that do actually give defense buffs. She is an alert character as well, so she could be in more alert-based teams. And that would also mean that she's got potential for there being an alert buff weapon on one of those characters where she gets 50% defense boost. So there is potential there. In the last passive, this is probably the most important one. In it together, when this character starts their turn with 60% HP or less, 100% chance all teammates heal by 40% of their max HP. This is very good indeed. She'll obviously have to be below 60% HP for this to work. And it also should be able to heal her. Like I said, I'll probably be able to show in greater detail how this stuff works once she's fully in the game. But I think this is a very nice passive indeed. And she has got the potential to lose HP quite significantly because of other parts of her kit, which we'll look at in a second. I can't show you the upgrades on this, but I'm going to guess that in it together is probably the LB3 required upgrade because it is easily the best passive hit. And the reason she's going to be losing HP on a fairly regular basis is because of her specialist skill, which is going to be Bodyguard. and that means if you deal 30% or more HP damage in a single attack, be it rush, signature move, or basic attack, to any enemy on a defense team or an attack team that Maggie is in, she will absorb that damage and take 50% of that damage reduced. So that is actually pretty nice indeed. And then obviously, let's say she goes below that 60%, it will proc her passive at the beginning of her next turn, and then all teammates, not just adjacent, but all teammates will get healed. I think the potential there is actually pretty good, especially for like an attack team, because defense teams can be just pretty random and they won't be able to control certain things. On an attack team, you can potentially control this a little bit better. You know, you can normalize Maggie if you want to just nuke someone else first. You can stun Maggie, because if a bodyguard is stunned, they do not actually hit the bodyguard. It doesn't actually happen. So there is that to mention as well. I'm quite a fan of bodyguard, so I'm pretty happy that, you know, we're getting a bodyguard. And this is going to be quite useful for new players, because the progression mission is generally aimed at newer players, and this is going to be a character that basically can absorb all the nukes that are going to be coming in. Although, if they do use really low level characters like 5 stars, basically someone can get nuked as a 5-star, and Maggie will just absorb so much damage and she'll just get one shot, and they probably won't understand why that's happening, but maybe it's a good, you know, good learning process. But yeah, that is pretty rough. Now, without a doubt, probably the best thing about Maggie's kit, other than that passive, is she has actually got a really nice weapon, and it is Maggie Greene's defensive bow. It has a 35% HP base, a 35% defense base, improved focus stun when being attacked, a 60% chance to stun the enemy and gain focus for 2 turns, and then in the last slot, it has reduced critical hit damage taken by 50%. So this is really nice, honestly. I like this weapon. It's basically very similar to the Norse pistol, which is in the battle pass, which they're selling for $10. So this is actually a pretty decent weapon. That it is attached to the character, so you can't obviously remove it and put it on someone else. But you can raise that HP up to like 50% HP, and you've got a really nice weapon. You probably want to focus more on HP than defense, because she is a bodyguard. Bodyguards are all about HP. That's why it is kind of a downside on her signature move that is based on her defense, because realistically on a bodyguard you don't really want to raise defense as much. It wants to be reasonably high so they can't get nuked themselves, but they need to be able to absorb as much damage as possible. So she's not going to be able to do that and raise her defense at the same time to get the best out of that signature move. It's kind of a weird scenario there, but I think overall this weapon is, like I say, one of the most powerful parts of her kit. It's good for new players because they've not got access to like top level on the armory, but even if they did, you know, like a veteran, I do, and I can't craft this weapon because it's got improved focus stun, so it's going to be good for anyone who uses this character on their defense teams. So overall, I think Maggie Greene is pretty decent. I didn't expect like a world beater because she's in the progression mission system, but I will say that I think she's going to be useful for a bunch of people. I think she's even going to be on like veterans defense teams in certain scenarios, so I don't think she's terrible at all. It is a bit weird that she's holding a full-size bow as an alert character, like a mini hand bow, you know, like a little tiny one. That would be cool, but like a full-size bow as an alert character, it's interesting. It's interesting. And we did say on my stream, I was talking about it, that if she has got Glenn's hat on, this means that this is after they've met the Saviors, and this is after Glenn and Maggie got married, and then she would no longer be Maggie Greene. She called herself Maggie Ree after that, right? So I'm not sure about the name either. I'm not sure about the name. Maggie Greene was a farm girl. Basically, Maggie Greene was a farm girl. But I think overall, this isn't too bad a character. I'm not sure if I'm personally would use this character when it comes to any of my teams. But, you know, she has the potential for sure. She's not terrible by any stretch. So I think she's going to, like I say, mainly a good character for a defense team. And it's going to be useful for some new players coming up. Just as a support character on roadmaps and stuff like that. I think this is going to be pretty decent. But do tell me your initial thoughts on Maggie Greene. Like I said, I will probably do like a full-on preview of this character once it's fully released, just so I can see everything, just see how the kit works, just so we can see how the healing works and stuff like that. And that way I've got like some continuity with the style of video that I like to produce when it comes to character previews. But otherwise, I want to thank you very much for tuning in, guys. And as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.